There Once Was a Girl from Nantucket is the 5th episode of the first season of Wings, and this is a really enjoyable, self-contained episode. So there will be spoilers from now as I go into a bit of detail about things that happen in this. Most of my thoughts are chronological, but one brief thought is that I think Faye had some amazing lines in this. She had some fun anecdotes and fun responses. Nothing specific throughout it that I wanted to mention, but just in general, Faye was pretty awesome. So it starts off with Brian trying to find something to do with the weekend, and in the end, he decides that he's going to take on a new project, and this is to find Jo the perfect woman. Jo doesn't want him to do this, but nevertheless, this is what happens. And Brian finds him a woman called Cindy, played by Mullally. And part of me thinks the treatment of Cindy in this is a little bit awkward, but also because of something that Helen says and something that Jo does, it also isn't as awkward as it could have been. But I do think they might have treated this storyline a little bit differently if this was released today, because Cindy is basically, well, she sleeps around with a lot of people. Roy and Leroy both confirm that she dates a lot of men, and Jo isn't exactly excited about going on a date with her, but Helen tells him that he's doing a good thing, that he's giving Cindy a chance to break free from dating sleazy guy after sleazy guy, and that he's actually allowing her to date, well, allowing her isn't maybe the right turn of phrase, but giving her the benefit of the doubt and not just judging her for somebody who perhaps in the past has slept with a lot of people and is seeing her as a person rather than gossip. And I think that was a really good thing for the show to do, basically suggesting that even if somebody does have a past, they should deserve to be treated with respect and judged just for the person you know rather than the person that the rumours all suggest they are. But at the same time, when they walk into the restaurant and all of the guys start to, say her name, and there's this definite suggestion that she's slept with all of them, it is a little bit awkward. Would it be awkward if it was a guy in her position rather than a woman? I feel like it wouldn't be as awkward. And that in itself is quite telling, I think, about how men and women are often treated differently, certainly at this time. But it's very fascinating to watch now, however many decades later, that the treatment of the character, I think, just wouldn't be the same as it was today. But nevertheless, it's still a really enjoyable episode, and the reason they end up going to the restaurant is because Jo forces Brian to go on a date. He will only go on this date if they double date, which is what he thought was the original agreement, but Brian's date fell through, and Jo ends up convincing Helen to go on a date with Brian. It's obviously not a real date, she's just going there to fill the extra seat because Jo does not want to go on a date with Cindy on his own. But again, Jo not wanting to be alone with Cindy is also really fascinating about how he's still judging her and still has these preconceived ideas about her, rightly or wrongly. And that itself is very fascinating. The scene in the restaurant was pretty interesting. We meet a character very briefly called Jimmy. He is played by Ben Mittleman, and things get a little bit chaotic. I wish he'd maybe spent a little bit more time in the restaurant because it was a nice environment. The set design was really good, and it seems a shame that we only got a couple of minutes there. But nevertheless, what we got, I really enjoyed. And then the way the episode ends is pretty funny, with Cindy deciding to call it off. Fair enough, a nice way to wrap things up within this episode. And then it looks like Jo is constantly walking after her, and she has to keep telling him to stop following her, it's over. And then, of course, Jo reveals that he's the pilot. He needs to go that way. And it was just a really entertaining way to end the episode. It's definitely a very thought-provoking episode and really interesting to see how different characters treat Cindy. And I do believe that had it been, for example, a man dating Helen, I don't think he would have been treated in the same way. And I don't mean within the context of the episode, I mean within society. I think people's reactions would be different, the gossip would be different, or maybe even non-existent. And I think it is definitely very thought-provoking. And even though I think we still have a very similar attitude as the society today, unfortunately, I do think this episode might have been treated slightly differently, or Cindy might have been treated differently today. But either way, as an episode, There Once Was a Girl from Nantucket is a really great episode, really enjoyable. Faye, as I said, gave us quite a bit of comedy as well, and not a bad penultimate episode. Looking forward to the final episode of the very short first season, and then it's full steam ahead with rewatching season 2.